Hello, everybody. All right, so it's recording now. Anything you say can be held against you. Um, we'll be receiving this recording tomorrow morning, so look for an email. Some people from the last webinar told me the email went to spam. Make sure I'm not spam anymore and basically indicate to your email that I'm okay, but look in your spam folder. Tomorrow morning before 10, you'll receive the presentation and the recording for this presentation. And please don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat. I have my wonderful friend and colleague Chantal with me, who will all the links. We'll deal with that knocking door as well, and we'll answer questions in the chat. At the end of the presentation, I'll stop the recording, and then you can basically open your camera, your microphone, and chat and ask questions. I don't mind. And actually, you can share your screen and show me things that you want to test out. So I'll be happy to do that. So hopefully you're in the right webinar and you're here for NotebookLM for Education. My goal today is really to give you an overview of everything it can do. If it's your first time with NotebookLM, you'll learn a lot. If it's not your first time, then I hope I give you tips and tricks to use it, maybe ideas to use it with students as well. So hopefully everybody takes away what they need from this presentation. For those who don't know me, my name is Alexandra Coutley. I am based in close to Montreal, although I'm in the woods right now, like I was telling Darren before. And my email is on that second slide. Please don't hesitate to email me if you don't get the presentation and went to spam. Email me if you have questions after this. You're kind of wondering, you need a help page. You're wondering how to do something that I did again and want me to show you again. Email me. I'll be happy to help. But I also invite you to join your GEG if you are not already part of your GEG, and maybe ask your question there if you can, because then it benefits everybody. So we have GEGs that are Google Educator Group. They're groups that are basically organized by volunteers. We share information. We help each other out. We host events and we host webinars as well. And some of them, not all provinces are represented there. So if you're from a province that is not there, please, please, please let us know. Email me. I'll tell you what it's all about. I promise it's not a lot of work and it's a lot of fun. So on that slide, you have clickable links. British Columbia is coming and Manitoba is coming, but you can join Alberta, Toronto, Ontario, and Quebec already. And I saw in the chat that we have the GG leader here in person. So feel free to check. All right. So let's get started with probably my favorite tool out there. And we shouldn't have favorites, but I have a favorite. And Google NotebookLM is probably one of my favorites for sure. You can access Google NotebookLM by typing notebooklm.google.com. You can also find it in your waffle, so in your tools. It might be below if you've never used it. It has this logo that you see here, which I'm not sure what the logo is supposed to be, a bunch of doors, a notebook, a rainbow maybe. You can pick and choose what the logo means, but here's what the logo that you're going to be: a fountain of knowledge. I love that. So NotebookLM, basically your tool to deal with your own information. And that's why I love it so much. Gemini is a wonderful tool, very creative, looks through everything it can look through. NotebookLM looks through your sources. I like to explain it this way, where Gemini is kind of like a telescope. It has access to space and the universe and can look at everything. And for Gemini to target something, you really need to orient your prompt properly and guide it. NotebookLM is kind of like a microscope. So you give it the sources that it needs to go through, and you don't need to twinkle as much with it as with the telescope. So that's how I like to describe NotebookLM, but it is the power of Gemini behind NotebookLM as well, but from your sources. So if you've never seen NotebookLM, here's what it looks like. When you open up for the first time, it will ask you to create a notebook. See every notebook as kind of folder in your drive. So one topic per notebook. You can have a huge notebook with lots of topics as well. But basically, they're all little notebooks on different topics. And you will upload your own sources. Now, the sources you can upload are very varied. They can be websites, they can be slides that you created, they can be PDFs, they can be audio files, they can be images as well. You can even have your handwritten notes, take a picture, and upload them to NotebookLM. Lots and lots of sources that you can use. In the middle, you have the chat, and that's where you can chat with your sources. So you can ask questions, and the big difference between the chat here and a chat with Gemini is NotebookLM will only answer from your sources. So it will only cite your sources. It will not go through the web, and will talk only about what you put in this section here for your sources. Now, the magic happens in this section called the studio. In the studio, you can generate lots of material, audio overviews that are kind of like little podcasts, study guides, questionnaires, mind maps, and so forth. We're probably not going to have time to go over every single one of them, but I'll show you a couple of them so that you have the basics that you need to really create with the studio here. So 3 sections: sources, chat, studio. That simple. So let's take a look. Before we take a look at actually each section, what are the benefits of NotebookLM? Like I said, it's grounded in information that you gave it. So very different. Of course, your sources need to be good sources for the information to be interesting. If you give it uninteresting sources, it will give you uninteresting answers. But it also has the same protection as Gemini. If you're in a Google for Education account, nobody is going through your stuff. Your information is private. It's not used to train the models, just like Gemini is in your education account. It gives you information in a snap. You ask a question, it goes through your files. We'll talk about how many files you can have in there, but easy to find info once your sources are there. And the nice part is it's multimodal and multilingual. Now, what does that mean? Multimodal means audio, images, text, video, can actually take all of these forms and formats. Multilingual means if I put in my NotebookLM sources in Spanish, English, and French, I can have a conversation in the chat in French, even though some of the documents are not in French. It will answer me in French, and I can continue the conversation in Spanish if I want to. Well, I wouldn't, because I don't speak Spanish, so I wouldn't know what it's saying, but you could continue the conversation in the language of your choice. So very neat, multilingual, multimodal. Those are the advantages. And again, keeps your data private and secure for education users. Nobody at Google is checking what you're putting into your notebooks, and nobody's checking which questions you're asking, and your info is always private. And that's for you and for students. Now, your sources is the most important part of NotebookLM. Like I said, if your sources are garbage, then the answer is going to be garbage. So we need to make sure we pick the right sources that we put into NotebookLM. That's going to be a bit of a challenge with students, where they might pick the first website that they find and add it as a source. NotebookLM will not tell them, maybe you need to look at other sources. So we'll need to educate students on what's a good source and what should I put in there. Now you can add lots of different source types. I did not list all of them, but Chantal is going to put in the chat the page that basically lets you know all the supported files, and they keep adding supported files all the time. Lots of image file types. You can actually use PDFs. Of course, all of your Google Drive can go in there, and URLs. A little note though, if you are adding YouTube or a website, you need to make sure that it is accessible to everyone. Let me explain. Let's say I have a YouTube video and I have it in my channel and I set it to private, so only I can read the video. If I put the same video in NotebookLM, it will not read it. See NotebookLM as a partner you're sharing with. It doesn't mean it has the access because I have the access. If I'm reading an article and it's behind a paywall, I need to be subscribed to read the article. I'm subscribed, but NotebookLM did not pay for its subscription. So that means the article cannot be read by NotebookLM. What will happen is once you cut and paste the link here and you actually click insert, you'll see the file as read in your sources. And that means there's a problem with the file, probably an access. It's blocked behind a paywall or you don't have access to the file. So if you see that, that's what's going on with your file. If it is on the web, should be accessible. If you have access to it, and it's a public file, you should have access to it. Now, does that mean everything should be in there and you have the rights to use every single text? Not necessarily. If you're kind of wondering, am I allowed to use this, for example, this manual that comes with my class material, maybe ask the author or maybe ask a librarian to make sure that you're using copyright material. I'm not going to go into a whole legal thing, but we should always, know what we're using here. So basically, the first step to creating your notebook is to add your own sources. Like I said, you can search the web. You can also here, when you click where it says web, search your drive to find, for example, your class notes, or you can drop files here. If you hover over the and more, you'll see the same file we just shared with you with the list of available files. And then you can upload, cut and paste websites and YouTube links, go in your drive, or copy the text. Now, notice this line at the bottom says I'm at 13 out of 50. The basic NotebookLM account allows you for 50 sources. You're allowed 100 notebooks and you're allowed 50 sources. And it will tell you how far along you are. Now, if you have Education Plus or you have Google AI Pro, you'll also get more sources. And I can drop the link at some point for you to show you like how many sources you can actually use. A little note, and this is pretty new from about a week ago, your drive files now automatically sync. In the past, if you've used NotebookLM, when you actually grabbed your presentation, your Google Slides, and you put it in there, NotebookLM kind of took a picture of it at the moment where you uploaded it, and that was it. Now it will actually update by itself. It will sync automatically. That also means, though, that if somebody deletes it, let's say they shared it with you and you have access to it, but suddenly they delete your access, it's also gone from your NotebookLM. So, but this is good news because now if you have notes, you have a Google Doc with lots of notes, everything will automatically sync. I see a question in this chat, but students can also use your files as sources from Classroom. So that's great. Absolutely. The next one is you can do a web search really quickly, but you can also do a deep research in NotebookLM. A deep research is a little bit different. I'm not going to demo it because it can take a few minutes to do, but I invite you to try it out. When you click and you give the topic and you create a deep research, it actually creates a report and lists all of the sources. You'll be able to import the report into your sources and import all of the links as well as part of your sources. And this one is also pretty new, although it's been a little while, but maybe new to you. You can now organize your sources because at some point when you have 50 or 100 sources, you'll have a whole long list. And a lot of people were asking, can we put them in folders? Can we organize them? Can we play around with it? Well, now you get this little button here, this little label maker that automatically creates categories and actually organizes your different files. And of course, you can rename it. You can remove from sections. You can move them around. You can create your own category. And you can even use emojis to basically organize your files. So I think we want to see things in action a little bit. So let's go to NotebookLM. Now, I'm in NotebookLM. When you arrive in NotebookLM, you might not have a lot of squares like this. It might be your first time. So if it's your first time, you're going to click on Create. But I'm going to go here this time in my notebook. And now I realize my whole thing is in French. So you'll see Franglish here and there. So a bit of French, a bit of English. So my sources are in English. See, I told you it was multilingual. So here on the side, we'll have add sources where you'll be able to click and add sources like I showed you before, and you can upload. And here is where you can use the deep research and switch it. I'll take a second after to switch everything to English in a second. We just gave the same workshop in French, so now I'm doing Franglish, so that's why I should have switched it before. Notice how all my files are here, but it's kind of tough to look through and there are no categories. Well, if I click on this link, it will actually create categories for me. Now, it decided of the categories. Maybe I disagree with the categories, but here I can rename them. I can remove, I can move categories around. So you still have some work that you can do, but pretty neat to have that functionality where you can actually switch it around. All right, so let me go back to, those are the sources. We're good. I see questions in the chat. Let me just quickly switch around my account. I just won't show you my account if that's okay, and all my info, and switch the language so everything is in English. Here we go. Now that should give you everything in English. Now we're back. All right, so I see 50 per notebook is with the basic NotebookLM. Then you can get 100 if you're Education Plus or Teaching and Learning. And I think it goes up to 300 if you're Google AI Pro. But honestly, 50 sources is pretty good to start with 100 notebooks. That's a lot of sources. And remember, sources can also be Google Docs with multiple pages. So your sources can be pretty intensive. I haven't seen that many people reach their limit in terms of sources, basically. Maybe now you will, now that I'm giving this webinar and you're going to use it all the time. So now they'll have to increase our limits to everybody. Now, the next part in the middle, if you remember, I've added my sources. I made sure that my sources are of good quality. Remember that we might need to teach our students what's a good source before they put it in there and generate and ask questions. But the next part in the middle is the chat. Now, the chat works pretty much like Gemini, where there's a section where you ask a question, except that this time, all the answers are going to come from your sources. They're not searching the web. They're not going to talk about, I don't know, the math program in Switzerland. They're going to talk about your information, whatever you put in there. So you can ask a question directly, type your question, or you can use the prompts that are there. And they're usually pretty interesting. They might not be questions that you have thought of, but depending on your sources, they will suggest different things. For example, why has Anne of Green Gables become so popular in Japan? So that's part of my sources. It might be an interesting question to ask that I may not have thought to ask. Notice that you have a summary here, prompt questions, and you can ask a question yourself. And notice how it says it's going to answer questions according to 10 sources, because I'll show you in a minute where you can select and deselect your sources. Now, I can decide to have 50 sources, or Darren has 32 sources in his biggest one. So I could actually question 32 sources, but I could also select 2 of them and just ask questions on those 2 without leaving my notebook and coming back to it. Now, notice this little button here, Save to Note. Maybe the answer it gave you is super interesting and you want to save it. And maybe I want to send it to Chantal by email. I can copy, but I can also save to note to use later. Everything that you ask will stay in the chat unless you decide to delete it. So at some point, maybe if I ask a lot of questions, that wonderful note is going to be gone and up there and difficult to find. So maybe I want to save to note or copy and paste it somewhere else. Now, the great part about the chat is when I ask a question, it actually cites my sources. Now, if you hover over the little numbers that are at the end of each part, there's a 1 and a 2 here that you might see very little. If I hover, it actually tells me where it pulled the information from, and basically allows me to also click and view the source, and then will open up in my sources and tell me exactly where it pulled the information from. Also something to show students if they're using, where is it pulling the information from? Is the source accurate, the source that you gave it? Or maybe you're missing some sources in your research and you need to add a little bit more. So important to for media literacy to learn about checking out your sources. The other thing is you can actually customize or configure your chat. So you can go in, and usually it's the default mode, and that's probably every person I know has used the chat and used the default mode at some point, because that's the one that's default. But you might want to go and switch it around, and there are two options. The first one is called Learning Guide. Now, if you set it up as the Learning Guide, it will actually become kind of a coach or tutor where it asks you questions instead of just giving you the answer. So great if you want to learn about a topic, but also great to select before you share with students, because once it's shared with students, and I'll show you later how we share with students, it will stay in Learning Guide. They won't be able to reconfigure the whole thing. They'll stay in that tutoring kind of mode. The next one is called Custom, and that's when you can actually give instructions to the chat as to how they're supposed to speak and act. I've seen people use it to be sports announcers and speak in sports analogy only in the chat. So you could customize it to the level of vocabulary, the style it's going to have, the persona it's going to play. And again, same thing. Once you share it and people are in reading mode, and we'll see it later, how we can share it, it will stay as is. So you can customize the instruction. And of course, you can customize the length of the answer as well. And I'm showing you all these little configuration things because I keep looking into all these little menus, because that's often where they add extras. So who knows in 2 weeks if there's going to be an extra thing that's added here and lets you customize it even more. Right now, the response length is default longer and shorter. Maybe it's going to say something else in a couple of weeks and have like only 2 paragraphs or point form or whatever. So make sure to double check every once in a while these little options I'm showing you. The other one that is new but not so new, it happened a little while ago, is you can actually customize the look of your notebook. Now, when you first create your notebook, it will pick an emoji at the top, and it will pick an image, a color of some kind. But you can click on Customize and import the image you want to use. Makes it a lot easier when you have lots of little notebooks on your screen. But you can also customize the summary that is generated underneath it. Gemini behind NotebookLM will generate a summary according to what's in your notebook. But maybe you want control over this and decide what the summary is. So again, when you click on Customize, you'll be able to set custom notebook summary. Those can be, if you're sharing with students, this can be a real nice part to give instructions and say, hi students, here's Chantal here, and here's what I want you to do with this notebook. And please take a look at this and that, and don't forget this and that. And you can customize the instruction. Not necessarily a summary, but you can kind of use it to customize it this way. So let's take a quick look at the chat and the customization before we actually move to the magic of the studio. So let me leave this and come back here. And now it's in English, magic. So the customization here in the chat, you'll find here at the top where it says configure notebook. And when I open it up, you have the same thing that I have on my screenshot. You'll get the presentation slides. So when you go back, you'll know exactly where things are. But notice this custom one. And this is where I can say customize so it responds at a PhD student level, or pretend to be a role-playing game host every time you answer. So that's where you can go ahead and have lots of creativity, but also where you can orient the type of answers you're looking for, the vocabulary, the level, depending on your students and your own. Maybe you prefer to have a game host speak to you every time you talk to NotebookLM. That's up to you. So custom opens up this box and you can give it information. Now to customize this image, I hover over this and I can click upload. I can change the notebook title. By the way, if your sources are multilingual, which I said was completely doable, NotebookLM might choose a title that's in French if you have a few French documents, or it might choose in Spanish if you have a few Spanish documents. But you can change the notebook title either here and customize, or you can click on the actual name here and change it. So you can always change it to whatever you want. And if you want custom notebook summary, you'll need to open this up and then write your message here. And this is where you could have your own summary of what the notebook is for, or add instructions for your students here. Now, when you ask a question, if you click on one of these questions, automatically it will prompt the AI to answer you. But once it's done, notice how I have my answer here. And if I hover over, I can see where it pulled the information from. If I want to see it full screen or bigger anyway, I click on it. I can click, or I can click on view source, and now I can see where it pulled the information from. So super important to show students, like, where is this information coming from? I love this tool as like a beginning introduction to AI and using it. Where is it pulling the information from? For AI literacy, NotebookLM is absolutely amazing for that. Now for the fun part, the creation part in the studio. Now, the studio allows you to create lots of different material with your information. Now, before I do that, I want to show you one thing that I forgot to show. Remember, I said you can select and deselect different sources. Very important to know that you don't have to always generate material on all your sources. And you're going to see it on my slide. It says, don't forget to select and deselect depending on what you want to create. So I wanted to show you how to do that first. The first one I'm going to show you is the audio overview. Now, the audio overview generates a podcast of your sources. Remember, you can pick and choose the sources, and we'll generate a podcast. If you click on the link, they're all little squares in different colors. If you click on audio overview, and in one click, it will generate an audio overview, but you have no choice over what it's going to create. That's why I'm going to invite you, especially if it's your first time, to go and play in the arrow and the different customizations for every single tool. Take the time to go and see the options. If I don't, it will just basically give me an audio, but I didn't get to pick and choose. You have 4 different audio overviews that it can create. The first one is called a deep dive. It's basically a conversation between 2 people, and they're just going to discuss your sources. They're always very enthusiastic about your sources. Whatever you put in there, it can be your math program, and it's the greatest math program in the universe, and then they'll discuss the whole thing. The next one is called the brief. Now, the brief is going to be a summary. It's one person talking and giving you a quick summary. The other 2 are super interesting to create material for students and for yourself. One is a critique. So you can have a critique of your lesson plans if you wanted to. And the other one is a debate, where you could give it like 2 sources, for example, and have the 2 people discuss your 2 sources and debate. I see lots of different usage in the classroom, but also for yourself, where you're trying to prepare lessons or you're debating a topic and you want arguments, you could create the little audio overviews. You can choose your language. Even if your NotebookLM, remember how my NotebookLM was set up in French at the beginning? I could still generate an English podcast, even if my whole environment is in French. Basically, NotebookLM will follow whatever the language of your browser is. But for every individual studio things that I will show you, you can pick and choose the language. Now you can choose the length, short, default, or long, and you can also give custom instructions. You'll even get, see here how it wrote like a kind of an intelligent suggestion for me. Now up to you to tell me if it's an intelligent suggestion or not, but sometimes I like these little smart responses. They give me ideas on what to add. And here, discuss why Anne of Green Gables became so popular within Japanese culture. Apparently I had a whole Japanese culture thing going on here. So take a look at what it suggests, because it might be interesting. Sometimes it might suggest different things. The next one is called the video overview. Kind of like we just generated a podcast. This one will generate a presentation with slides, but with a narration already done. So kind of a mix between a presentation and your podcast. It will let you, again, in one click. I click on video overview. I let it do its job. It's just going to pick and choose the style, pick and choose everything. But if I click on this arrow, then I have choices. The first one is called an explainer. It's going to be much more complete. The other one is going to be a brief, so shorter, to the point, maybe great as a hook for a lesson or at the end of a lesson to basically give students a summary of everything that we've seen, or for yourself to basically review something before a meeting or before teaching a lesson. Again, you can choose the language and you can choose the visual, and you have quite a few. Now, if you let it choose by itself, it will auto select, but try a few of them. The whiteboard is pretty nice. A lot of them are very nice. And again, notice how I have room to write my customized instruction. And it actually introduced like a few, include tips on planning a visit to Green Gables Heritage Park, for example. So take a look at the suggestions it gives you. Not all of the tools have those smart suggestions, but when they do, I like to take a look at them and see if it gives me some new pedagogical ideas. Suggestion. These presentations are really, really neat, can be downloaded. They can be added to Google Classroom easily, even if your students don't have access to NotebookLM. That's a decision your organization is going to have to make. But you can download them, put them in Google Classroom. You can even drop them to YouTube and add interactive questions to your video as well. As of today, at this time, because things change so much, I might get information in an hour that they added new features. You can't modify the video once it's done. So make sure to use the customized instruction to make sure it's really what you wanted and what you needed to focus on. What should the AI host focus on for the podcast and for this one? See it as if you're the producer and you're speaking to the presenters and you're telling them, don't forget about this and please focus on this, and give them instructions, and then you'll be more satisfied with the results. The next one is called the slide deck. And what does it do? It creates slide decks, and really, really nice ones. Again, you can create in one click, but what's really neat is when you click on that arrow and you customize it. Now you have two options, and who knows if they're going to add more options in the weeks to come. The first one is a detailed deck. It will have a lot of text, lots of information. So it's more something as a standalone that you can basically send and can be read. The next one is your presenter slide. So same idea as my presenter slide here. You want bullet points, you want minimal info. It's for you to use as a slide deck. So both are interesting to generate. And again, describe the slide deck that you want to create is right here, where you can give it information on style and tone and what it should focus on. A quick little tip, I like in my sources to add the images or logos or fonts or even a plan. I actually plan out on slide 1, here's what I want. On slide 2, here's what I want. And I basically select those sources. And in the instructions, I will tell NotebookLM, please use image 2 on slide 2. Please use the plan to basically organize the presentation. And please use the logo on every single slide. But I will tell it which source to go and get. You'll have something very, very customized. Now, you can modify the slides. I'll show you how in a second. And you can download as PDF and ironically as PowerPoint right now. But we all know that PowerPoint can go in Google Drive, which means that you can drop it in Drive, but it will drop as an image file as of now. So your slides are all nice, but they're in Drive, but basically are images you can't modify. But I'll show you a tip on how to modify your slides before you export them. And by the way, I don't know if you've explored Google Vids, which is an amazing tools for video creation, but you could download your PowerPoint files, put them in Drive, then upload to Google Vids to add music, narration, and actually make your own interactive slides. So let's go. The last one before we take a look at it is infographics. Kind of the same idea. Create in one click, select your sources that you want to create with, and then, or use the arrow and go through the different styles. Take a look at the different visuals. They're super nice. The Lego one is my favorite, so go check it out. And then the level of details, if you want something more concise, the standard or very details. And again, I can describe what I want. I can describe the color, the fonts. I can give information that I want to add to it and focus on things. Now, as of today, infographics can't be modified directly in NotebookLM. So the more info you give it to begin with, the more you'll be satisfied with the result. You can, of course, pull it out of there. Gemini does a pretty good job of changing things in my infographics. So sometimes I pull it out of there. I put it in Gemini and say, can you fix this? And can you change this word? And it will regenerate it. So could be interesting. But as of now, no modify button. And you can then add to a presentation, sharing classroom. And one idea that I saw a teacher actually create was have our students create infographics, but from their notes. So they took class notes, then imported their notes in a NotebookLM, asked for an infographics, and then in Teams, they actually looked at the infographics and decided which one was the most precise one, basically having to debate who took better notes and basically using the infographics as a discussion activity to see if they understood, if they took great notes, and if the infographics were actually relevant. So let me leave my presentation and go to the studio. So to create, we can one click, or I can actually use the arrow. As you can see, I can decide and add information. Notice when I got to this section, I had little buttons here that suggested things I could add. And if I click on it, it actually adds it. Not all of the tools have that, but I see it more and more. Those smart suggestions being added might make sense to actually look at them every once in a while and see what kind of suggestions you're getting. With the video overview, same thing. You click and you can slide over, and there are different styles you can use. And again, what should the AI host focus on? It's giving me ideas that I can use, or I just ignore it and I start typing exactly what I want. Now for the presentation, I want to actually show you, we're going to take a look at some that are already done. So let's take a look at this one. And this is a presentation it created for me. Now notice how it's pretty small. I can't see the whole thing, so I can expand the viewer and see it full screen, which is much better. And notice how I have this button that says revise. So if there's something I want to change, could be the images, could be a typo I've seen, although it does do a pretty good job, but maybe it misunderstood something from a source or something. I could actually click on revise and notice how it opens up a box here, and I can type and give it a prompt to see what I want change in this particular page. Now you have to do this for every single slide. If there's nothing on slide 1 I want to change, perfect. But if I want to change something on slide 2, I have to write it, Then I go to slide 3 and I say, please change this, use another illustration, for example, and then I keep going. Once I'm done with editing and actually giving feedback, I can click here at the bottom where it says generate revised deck, and it will create another version updated with all my changes. So that's the way you can modify it. For infographics, as of now, we don't have that revise button, but I wouldn't be surprised, and I would double check. And if I see a little pencil icon show up, it might mean that you can revise and do things. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, another feature I really like is this one where I can start a slideshow. So I don't even need to export. I can just open NotebookLM, and if this was my teaching material, I could just go ahead. Notice how busy this is. This is not the presenter slide. This is the other one that's a lot more complete. But if I like it, I can use the slideshow and showcase it. Now, I have a button here with the 3-dot menu where I can download as a PDF. I can download as a PowerPoint. I can delete if I want to. Not going to do that now. And I have a share button, but we'll come back to the share in a second. This will not just share, it will copy the link to this actual presentation, but I need to share the whole notebook with the person for them to be able to access it. So it's basically kind of a shortcut directly to the presentation, but I need to make sure I shared the presentation with the person before. So that share button happens in a lot of different sections. If you look here, I created different elements. You have this one. We have the audio podcast. Notice here the 3-dot menu. I have a download. I have a share. And a button I really, really like is this one, view prompt and sources. It's actually appearing everywhere. Notice how I don't have a prompt because I did not give it specific instructions. But if I gave it specific instructions, my whole prompt will be there, and it's telling me which sources it used. Now, why is this neat? Because if I want to remember how I did my infographics last time and what was the prompt, I can actually open it up, copy the prompt, and then modify it for the next one. So take a look at the different options here in the menu. That might be super useful in the future to reuse different material. Now, we took a look at different elements, but now how do you share this? Yes, you can use it on your own. Maybe you don't want to share. Maybe you're not a sharer, and that's okay. Maybe it's a notebook for you, and you don't need to share. But I love sharing with colleagues and collaborating. This is the way to share with colleagues, because for students, I'm going to show you another way to share. Now, to share with colleagues, at the top of your screen, you have a share button. When you click on it, you'll probably be very familiar with this box that looks like any other share box in your Google environment. You'll be able to add the email address or the group. If you have already a group of, like, we're math teachers and you have a group that you use to share your Google Docs, for example, or your slides, you could actually use the groups as well. Now, as of today, you can only share with people within your organization. So only with people who have the same end of email address as you. So I could share with Chantal if she works at the same school as me, but I can't share as of now with other people outside of my environment. Who knows if that's going to change, but as of now, an education account only inside your organization. Now, notice once I share, I have this little button here that can allow me to notify people. If I click this, then Chantal's going to get an email telling her I shared the actual notebook with her. If I don't, then I can just talk to her, because we're humans and we can still talk. So we don't always have to send emails. So if I'm going to see her in person, I might as well tell her. And then notice how I'm the owner of this notebook. And I've shared it with some people as viewer. So you have viewer, editor, and of course I can remove access at any time. I don't have commenter like in some other tools, because we can't comment a notebook. But if I send as viewer, then Chantal can actually see my sources, chat, and see what I created in the studio. I'll show you a screenshot in a minute, but she cannot edit, add sources. She cannot create in the studio. She can't modify my notebook. If I share as editor, then we can collaborate. So this can become, something for all of the math teachers to drop sources and create and generate, and we can collaborate on the notebook. Now, if I click on copy link, it will actually copy the link. I can send by email or I can share. But if I use the arrow, I can actually copy a link to the chat view only. Now, this does not restrict Chantal from going to the whole notebook, but if she uses that link, it actually brings her to just the chat. Now, if she goes to her NotebookLM, it will actually have this little, like, this was shared with you, and she'll have access to everything. But if she uses that link, she'll just see the chat, which can be nice to not be distracted by everything else. So that it really depends how you want to share it. Now, if I share it with colleagues, and I have at least 4 colleagues that I shared it with, I can use analytics. It's at the top right next to your share button. So you need to have at least 4 people that you shared it with. So if you shared it with your entire organization, for example, you'll get information on how many users per day actually used your notebook, and you'll get how many questions they asked per day. You don't get to see what Chantal asked, and if she has good questions, you won't get to see all that information, but you'll get a little bit of an analytic to see if it's being used. Now, it needs to have been used in the last 7 days. So if you open it and you say, I shared it with 100 people, and there's nothing, then it means they're not using it. And maybe you need to email them or go and knock on their classroom or something and talk to them. So analytics is for when you share with colleagues, for example. Of course, you could share with students this way. You can enter 1 email for 1 student, but I don't know for you, but when I was teaching, I used to teach English as a second language. I had 6 groups. That was 180 students. I am not entering 180 emails in that little box one by one. So Google Classroom was a lot easier to distribute material, and there are advantages to using Google Classroom to do that. Now, if you want to share with students, you'll go to the homework section where you usually assign information for your students. You can use the Create button and then click NotebookLM. And this will create what they call like more of a resource. It's not an assignment. You won't be able to add due dates and everything. You'll just basically have it as a resource. It will be at the top of your classroom, and students will be able to access it. Once you open it up, it will ask you, do you want to create a new one, or do you want to select an existing one? And then you'll select from a drop down. Here I have my Anne of Green Gables one, and then attach notebook, and then students have access to it. Now, every time I make changes to my notebook, it changes for them too. So if in the studio, I created an infographic and I want to remove it next week and create a video instead. So now this week they're looking at a video, it will update automatically. If I add sources, it will update automatically. So I've seen teachers have a notebook for the entire year, for example, and just keep adding the sources that they needed. And that was the reference for the whole year or for the whole term or for a specific topic, but then change things every week. Now, if you want to add it to an assignment and you want to have it be part, you want to add a Google Doc where they take their notes, but they can also use a notebook as a reference. Well, you create an assignment, and at the bottom here, you have NotebookLM right there. And you can add instructions and evaluate it, put a due date and so forth. And then you have your notebook as part of the attachments right there in the assignment. Now, as a viewer, it will look like this. Remember, I said if I share it with Chantal, if I share it with Google Classroom, it will look exactly the same. It will say shared at the here, so I know I shared it. And notice how I don't have a button to add any sources at the top. I have a chat, which works. I don't have my customize button. So if I decided this was a game show host, it's always going to talk as a game show host. The person cannot change it, cannot customize the image, cannot change the summary here or my instructions. They can only chat with it. And here in the studio, notice the buttons are gone. So they can't actually create new material. They actually have to interact with whatever I decided they needed to interact with. So only the information I actually went through and thought it was relevant to share. Now, why was it an advantage as well to get to go through Google Classroom? Remember those analytics that tell you, okay, how many people actually viewed it? Well, if you go through Google Classroom, you'll get even more info. It is coming soon. I did get to see it in action in a school, and it was pretty neat. We tested it with students. It will actually let you know how many students opened it, how many students opened it but did not start a conversation. But what I really like is that you can navigate from student to student and actually see the conversations they had. But like I told you, 180 students, I don't think I'm going to click on every single conversation. What I love is you have a dashboard that will automatically summarize the info for you. So it will tell you what were the top questions. It will tell you where, for example, NotebookLM had a tough time answering a question from a student, and it will tell you which one so that you can click on it. For example, we had a student who kept trying to get NotebookLM off track and make it do something it was not supposed to. So NotebookLM told us, I kind of had issues with this conversation. So instead of having to go through all 160, it told us Chantal was trying to do something. We clicked on it and then read her conversation and then could intervene and have a conversation and talk about good use of technology. Now, it could also be they asked a question that could not be answered because we did not have a source on that particular question. They don't always do bad things with technology. So maybe the student was really interested about something that was not in her sources, and that question could not be answered. And maybe as a teacher, I can add sources for that particular question since I see their interest. So see how it can actually be super helpful as a dashboard to see what's going on. So great advantage going to Google Classroom. I have about 10 minutes left. So let me show you really quickly a few extras that I really, really like. We did not go over everything in the studio. I'm not going to demo these ones. You'll have them in the presentation, but I really invite you to check them out. The first one is called the mind maps. So you can have a mind map of all of your document. And one of the new features is that you can now customize. This little arrow did not exist before. Before it was a one button click. It generated a mind map and that was it. That was your mind map. Now you can customize and actually have it rename your sources or your categories or focus on something in particular. One of the things I like with a mind map is it lets me know if I have all the categories that I need. If your students are doing research and they're putting everything in NotebookLM, ask them to generate a mind map and see, did they forget an element? Is there something missing? Or is something not covered? If they're preparing for a debate, for example, are there arguments in there that they did not actually touch on and they might need to go back, research, and add sources? So mind maps can be downloaded. It becomes an image file and you can take it out of there, but now you can also customize. So that's a pretty neat feature. The other one is called reports. And probably because we see reports and we go, oh, reports, and it sounds administrative and we don't often go to it. Maybe they should rename reports so it sounds more interesting. It's one of my favorites, honestly. When you go to report, you have 4 formats by default. The first one is called Create Your Own. I like to use Create Your Own to create frequently asked questions documents. It will actually pull from my sources and create question answer. And I have a document I can actually, for example, give to parents for frequently asked questions. So you can create your own by explaining what you want. It has the briefing doc, the study guide, and the blog post for every single type of sources that you have. But the wonderful part is at the bottom. Remember those smart, intelligent suggestions? Suggested format will actually pull up 4 things it thinks could be interesting to create with my sources. So here it suggested a historical narrative or an authentication manual. So I probably have first edition books in there. You'll see lots of suggestion. And when you click, it will generate whatever document is there. Now notice this little pencil icon. It means you can customize it. You can actually give it instructions and say, this is pretty neat. I want a historical narrative, but let me customize it. So check out the reports. Don't think reports just mean reports. So they can be pretty creative as well. And by the way, whatever it generates can export to Google Doc. So then you can play around with it. It becomes a document that you can use. This next one, the flashcards, is pretty neat. And I'll go quickly, but I want to show you how to really use it and how to show your students to use it as well. Now, flashcard, just like the other ones, I have this arrow. I can customize. I can customize the level of difficulty. So I've seen a lot of teachers assign week 1, I give the easy ones, and then I go the tougher questions by week 3, for example. But when you use the flashcard, you'll get this screen. You get a question, and then you tap on it, and it flips over, just like those little cardboard flashcards that we used to have. And you actually see the answer, so you can study with it. And a lot of students have told me they love using it on the bus going home, and they study their vocabulary, study their for their chemistry exam, and so forth. But notice at the bottom where you have the X and the check mark, if you indicate to NotebookLM which one you got right and which one you got wrong, so you need to be honest, because if you tell them NotebookLM you got them all right, then that's kind of useless. You're cheating yourself, basically. But if I indicate the whole thing, then it will compile the results and actually generate a report at the end and help me study the ones I didn't get right. There's also a button, once I flip, there's a button called explain. And if you click, it opens up the chat. And in the chat, we'll explain that actual answer and give you more information to keep on studying. Now, if you use the quiz, it kind of works the same way, except it will automatically autocorrect. You can use easy, hard, fewer questions. You can customize your question. And again, basically this time you have to click on the right answer and find out. It will autocorrect, not kind of like the flashcard where you need to be honest with yourself. But same thing, you have a hint. And you have the explain button. So if I did not get it right, I can click on explain. Or if I did get it right and I want more explanation, I click and it opens up in the chat. And the final one is called data table. That one, I can't find another name for it that's more exciting. It is a data table and pulls your data, but it does a really good job comparing dates, comparing numbers, analyzing everything. And because it is data, it exports to Google Sheets. So pretty neat to actually see in your if you have documents with lots of info and you want to compare and contrast things, it really works very well and exports the sheets. And then you can do whatever you want with your Google Sheet after that. The last one I'm going to show you is a tiny little one that's not at the top in the studio. It's at the bottom here where it says add a note. It kind of floats over your studio on the right and basically lets you add a note, and you can customize whatever you want. It has minimal layout, formatting, bold and italic and so forth. But the idea is to leave a note in the studio. If I shared this whole notebook with Chantal, for example, maybe I want to leave notes as to what is the goal or instructions or information. If you're sharing it as a teacher, maybe that note is called not new note, but read me first. And then you have instructions that you're giving to your students. So just a little extra feature where you can cut and paste text. You can add, here's a link to our school website to check out. Of course, this could be in the sources as well, but I find it pretty neat if you can have a read me first kind of document. It's nice to have, it's right there and super simple to use. So that's it for the features, and I managed to do it under an hour, which I'm impressed with the amount of stuff. All of the training sessions that we gave we're done, so you can't sign up, but all of the links for the sign up are actually going to become the recording. But I will also tomorrow morning send you the recording, send you the slide deck as well. If you were registered, you're getting the slide deck. I'm not putting the slide deck out there, but the recording will be there, and in your email will be the slide deck as well, so you can go back to everything. I did a lot of screenshots so that you could actually go back and say, where did I click again? And you'll be able to reuse this. If you want to show colleagues and share, please do. But if you reuse these same links, it will take you to the same registration page, but the form is gone and the video will be uploaded. I'll do it first thing in the morning, promise. And I've added this as well. There are lots of little lessons on this website, sorry, on NotebookLM, and usage, very pedagogical, good usage. They are 15-minute lessons that give you actual prompts that you can use and actual ideas. Of course, there are tons of them on Gemini as well, but some of the ones on NotebookLM are super interesting. They go from elementary to all the way to university students. So go and check them out. It's 15 minutes. You sign up, you take the course. You can even just take the evaluation. If you're a badge freak like I am and you collect badges, you can get your badges with the exam as well. So check out the Google AI Educator series. And please check out the certifications as well. If you're looking forward to becoming a GEG leader, please let us know. And don't hesitate to email me if you have questions. You're kind of wondering about the process. How do I become a trainer? How do I get, how do I become a Gemini educator? What does that involve? How much time is that going to take? Email me. I'll be happy to chat with you about this. And I have one last favor before we end. If you could fill out the feedback form that we just dropped in the chat or is on the screen, give me feedback on today's presentation, and let us know what other topics you'd like us to actually talk about in future webinars. And there's a section in the form as well to give me your email. Well, not give me, give us basically your email, so that we send you an email every time we do these sessions. We do post them on social media. There's sometimes in newsletters, but we all know sometimes we don't see everything, and we don't want to spend our life on social media either. So you'll get directly an email because you asked to be informed. So that's up to you. You can fill it out. You can just give me feedback or just fill out, I want to be informed of the next sessions. So hopefully, if this was your first time with NotebookLM, now you want to go and click on all the buttons. If this was not your first time, I hope you discovered new buttons that you're going to go and click, or new ideas to use it. And I hope you explore. This is a wonderful tool. And if you have the chance to try it out with students, I personally think it's one of the best ways to begin approaching AI with students. At this point, I'm going to stop the presentation, stop sharing my screen, and stop the recording. If anybody has a question and they did not want to be recorded,